So yesterday's video, I talked about the most overrated players in the AFC North, and I know that that is kind of an inherently negative video. So to cheer things up, and honestly, in an exercise that I think is going to make a lot of Browns fans feel even better about the upcoming season, what I'm going to do this week, I'm going to rank each position group 1 through 5, starting with the offense today. I'll do the defense another day, and we're going to see what's the best position group on the offense, what's the best position group of the defense, so we can have a better idea of where this team's strength is and where their supposed weaknesses are. But before I do that, I want to make sure I give a huge thank you to the patreon.com dog check tier members. I'm going to start with Fred Pratt III, David Valtier, Relentless Buck, Chunt, Rex Kaufman, The Real Quincy Carrier, Kevin Johnson, Marino V, Cleveland Cart, Matt H, Sign Sheets, Gemini, Fight Dirty 74, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hundo Magnifico, Rob Ferron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, Dave Roth, J Guy 101, Joe Bobby, Brad Calvo, Dylan W, James McGinley, Orenda Hall, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Dylan Hale, Josh Bendor, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Cleveland BCI, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bear, Brock Kumar, John Albert, Masayua, Buds Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, Sean Barron, Goggles Pisano, Corporal Nick Lopez, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Dave Strong, Matt Stone, Charles Work, Billy Moose Gentry, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, Dog Pound Kai, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Kirkabar, Easley Badge, Joe Hart, Gabriel Wilson, Max Nilikinko, Lydia Mahawk, Jesus Serrano, Chris Phones, Picktown Browns backers, Mark Kahn, Max Owl Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much. Also, please don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you don't miss out on anything. Again, guys, tons of content coming out during the off season, during training camp, during the preseason, all of it. There will be a ton of content. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're notified so you don't miss a single thing. Now let's talk about the offense and what I think is the best position group on offense. So I'm going to start with what I think is the worst position group on the offense, and I'm going to get to the best position group. But I think especially on offense, this is such a solid group that even the last ranked unit would be a very good unit for most other teams. And, you know, I even think there's an argument to be made that this unit that I'm going to rank number 5 would probably be the best tight end unit in the AFC North. I guess I kind of low-key spoiled it, but yeah, tight ends is number 5 for me. Now, this unit has Austin Hooper, David Njoku, and Harrison Bryant at the head of it. And for that to be your technical weakness on the offense, that's pretty good. The offense is doing pretty good. This is a group that is full of potential. It's a very deep group. I mean, 1 through 3, you can kind of depend on these guys being good on some level, or at least being able to be some kind of threat as a receiver. Why they are number 5 to me, I feel like they were very underwhelming statistically when you look at their offensive production. Austin Hooper was definitely underwhelming, under 500 yards for him. David Njoku and Harrison Bryant, you would have probably expected more, especially in the first year of this offense, where you would have assumed that tight ends would have had a bigger role than they ever would, because as this offense gets, more and more advanced, you would incorporate more and more wide receivers. When you look at the statistical numbers, it was a disappointment. And when you look at the highness of the PFF scores, it's just not where you would expect, especially Austin Hooper to be. But it is a still very potential filled and very solid group. I think the one thing that brought this group down mightily in 2020, and I hope they correct in 2021, was consistency, right? Hooper wasn't consistent in producing at a consistent level. Harrison Bryant fumbled a ton. He was inconsistent in his ability to be productive, get on the field. And Njoku, who probably was the most consistent tight end of all in the group, which is pretty shocking given his track record, still was inconsistent with his hands, which has been a running thing with him. So the tight end group, ton of potential. just needs to produce more and honestly needs to be more consistent. If they don't produce great numbers, right, and the numbers only go up by like 100 to 200 yards next year, but they're much more consistent, much more reliable than they were this year, that's a huge win for this tight end group. So I don't think they're very far off from that. We just need Austin Hooper to step it up and be more consistent. We just need Harrison Bryant to step it up and be who we thought he could be in training camp, but then he kind of took some steps back during the season. And David Njoku, we say it all the time, if he can get those drops fixed, he would be amazing, but we know with David Njoku, it's part of the bargain with him. So that's why tight end is number 5. Overall, a very deep group, probably the best tight end group. I mean, outside of Baltimore, I would say probably the deepest tight end group in the AFC North. Maybe not the best because Mark Andrews is so much better or has produced so much more than the other tight ends on the Cleveland Browns roster, so you might not be able to make that argument. But I think there is an argument, at least, for them being the best group in the AFC North. Nonetheless, they're the worst group on the Browns offense, so we're starting off at a pretty high level here. The next group I'm going to talk about is the wide receivers. This room features, obviously, at the top of it, Odell, Jarvis Landry. You got guys like Rashard Higgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Kadero Hodge who kind of fill in the gaps. Again, this group had underwhelming numbers, much like the tight end group. One of the reasons I went with this group ahead of the tight end group, one, star potential, right? Jarvis and Odell have much more star potential, in my opinion, than Harrison Bryant and, Austin Hooper. I don't think they're star level tight ends. I do think that wide receivers, you do have a couple guys who could be star level if they play at their potential. Also, I think the underwhelming numbers for the wide receiving group ultimately have more of a reason to be that way than the tight end numbers, right? There were injuries in the tight end rooms, but like the wide receiving room got hit hard with the injury, got hit hard with the virus at some point, just a ton of things going in and out. No Odell after week 7, which affected things against the better secondaries you played because then it changed how teams covered them. And you saw when they played a team like Baltimore, before Baltimore lost like 3 or 4 defensive backs in that second game on Monday night, it was an issue getting separation with them. Having no Odell out there, I think very much affected a lot of the productivity. Jarvis's hip injury, he didn't look like Jarvis Landry at all until maybe week 10 against Jacksonville. So all of those things kind of add in, plus the run heavy scheme, which the tight end room's dealing with, but I think the tight end room probably should have gotten more focused than the wide receivers. All this stuff is why the underwhelming numbers is ultimately less of a hit for the wide receivers than the tight ends. Also, I just think the wide receiving room is more deep. Again, the star level guys there. You also got guys who I think could be really good fill-in guys. Rashard Higgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones. We'll see what they have in Anthony Schwartz. Kadero Hodge is a guy who flies under the radar, but I think he's been pretty decent in the small spots they've asked him to show up in. And I also think that this group is ultimately more consistent, right? There are guys on this team like Jarvis Landry and especially Rashard Higgins who are just more reliable, just more consistently able to get open and able to get you that 3rd and long. I mean, how often was it one of those two guys when Baker was in the 3rd and 10 making a play, getting open at the right time, scoring at the right time? I mean, Rashard Higgins is like, this is his thing. So that's another reason why I would have them over them. The one thing this group is missing before they can get in like the top tier conversation when it comes to the Browns offense is Odell needs to be a star receiver again. That's the one thing this group is missing, is a star receiver. I think they have a lot of really good guys. I think they have a low Spade in Jarvis, and I think they have some real nice face cards when it comes to Rashard Higgins and Donovan Peoples-Jones, but they need that ace. And right now, Odell could be that ace, but he just hasn't been that ace, whether it be injuries, whether it be the Todd Monken, Freddie Kitchens experiment. Things just haven't been right for him, and I'm excited about this year because he's coming back from that injury, and things are finally right with Odell, right? You're going to be in the same offense. You seem like you have a competent situation around you. Baker played well the year before, and I feel like if there is a year where Odell is going to be Odell Beckham again, he's going to be a star receiver again in his career, or especially in Cleveland, this is a prime year for it to happen. But since he has not done that, it takes points off of them, and that's why they're number 4 in my ranking of offensive position groups. Now we're going to move into the third best group on the Cleveland Browns offense. It's going to be the quarterback room. Now, it's kind of hard to rank the quarterback room because, yes, you have a quarterback who last year played at a top 10 level. I think he was 8th in PFF. You didn't see much out of Case Keenum. The pro football numbers are terrible for him, but he had like 10 snaps maybe or 10 pass attempts, so it's not really fair to gauge him on that. And inherently, a quarterback room is just not going to be insanely deep because there's not a ton of good quarterbacks in the NFL, period. So all of that factors into it. You have a really good starter. You had a decent backup. This is the third best position group on the team. I think that's pretty fair to say, at least offensively. Now we're going to move on to the top 2 conversation, and the battle between this was difficult for me to really come with a definitive answer for, because these 2 groups are both the best at their group in the NFL, in my opinion, in many others' opinion. They're both really deep groups. They're both pivotal groups. They're both dominant groups, and they're both groups that really are the catalyst for everything the Browns were able to do, on top of obviously Baker Mayfield and the things that he did in 2021. But the second best position group on the offense is going to have to be the running backs. Obviously, the reason they're ranked so highly, Chubb and Hunt, I mean, just look at the productivity numbers. This is Nick Chubb. I think he missed like 4 games last season. This is his total yards, his touchdowns. And then look at Kareem Hunt's numbers. Like, these are incredible numbers. Plus 1,000 for both running backs in total yards. They're both very versatile running backs. Nick Chubb is a threat as a receiver. Kareem Hunt is a dynamic threat as a wide receiver. And then we know what Nick Chubb is as a running back. He's very, very, very good. Maybe the best running back in football. You can argue it's him and Derrick Henry in that conversation right now. And then you have Kareem Hunt, who doesn't look as good when he's playing opposite or right after Nick Chubb because Nick Chubb is so good, but he's still very good. The numbers on him are very, very good. And this is a unit that was able to pound teams into submission, force a ton of missed tackles, and were the reason the Browns were able to win a ton of games this year with the help of another position group that I'm going to talk about in 1 second. The versatility is great. The depth is great. Dearness Johnson stepped in and had some moments, the third string guy. They just got Demetric Felton, so maybe he can add something in there too or be an upgrade over Dearness Johnson. So it's only getting stronger, right? These guys aren't old, both young guys. Yeah, this is a really, really good group, and it's one of the best position group rooms in football, especially when we talk about running backs. And it's crazy this isn't the number one, but when you see the numbers on the offensive line, I think it's pretty undeniable. This offensive line was not only the best run blocking offensive line in football last year, they were the best pass blocking offensive line in football last year. It wasn't particularly close in both categories with anybody else. And let's not forget, they did all of that as a unit despite having multiple injuries happen to that offensive line throughout the season. Like, it wasn't just the 5 guys that you see on the bottom right of the screen that were healthy all year, and that's what you played with. No, Wyatt Teller was out for parts of the year. Then when he got back, Chris Hubbard got hurt, which meant that you had to go one more deep. You had to put in, your backup center at guard. That ended up being a little bit of a disaster. But then you're getting guys like Blake Hance to step in, Michael Dunn to step in. I mean, legitimately, this is what is insane about what the 2020 Browns pulled off on the offensive line. This offensive line had to go at least 8 deep, I think maybe even 10 deep if you count Michael Dunn and Blake Hance at points in this year. And they still held up, and they still were the number 1 offensive line in pass blocking and in run blocking. That is just ridiculously good. Like, that doesn't happen every year. Like, when the Cowboys had their run as the most dominant offensive line in football, they were healthy. This was not even a healthy unit. And here's the thing when we talk about this going into 2021, which makes it a more ridiculous strength, you had 4 starters on this offensive line. They were the top 10 in their position group. That's crazy, right? You had the number 4 and number 1 guard in football, the number 10 tackle in football in Jack Conklin. And I believe J.C. Treader was like number 2 of all centers. And Jedrick Wills, who didn't rank highly, he didn't have great pro football focus numbers, but the people I trust about the offensive line really do seem to have a high opinion of the work that he put out in year 1. You're returning all of these guys, and they're, again, in the same offense. And the potential for them to get even better than they did last year. And again, think about what they did last year. They weren't even healthy the whole year. And honestly, the potential of that gets ridiculous at some point. It's hard to conceive an offensive line playing better than they did last year. And you have to remember that they were injured. And I think ultimately that's what gives them the heads up over the running back. Also, in 2019, the third half of the season, or the last, in 2019, the last third of the season, they had Chubb and Hunt. They didn't win that many games. Now, they had a bunch of other disasters going on, but what you can definitively say is that the offensive line improvements that they made last offseason made the running game better and more efficient, definitely helped Baker Mayfield reach his potential as a passer, and just improved the team, gave the team an identity for the first time in 20 years. And again, they did this with not just a couple of injuries, all kinds of injuries at this point. I believe Jedrick Wills missed a couple of games last year. Wyatt Teller missed like 4 or 5 games. Your backup right tackle missed games. Jack Conklin had to miss games. Like, these guys put an incredible body of work together with mismatched pieces at times. And I think that gets forgotten about when people look back at the 2020 seasons, that the Browns offensive line was as good as it was as dominant as it was. And they did it a lot of the times without being fully healthy, which is just rare. So that's why they're the best position group in the Browns offense. They could be one of the best position groups in all of NFL offense. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Does this really get you excited and kind of understanding the kind of roster that the Cleveland Browns have? Just a little side note. I know a lot of people, they tend to not want to be as optimistic as possible about it, and I understand that. But I see people downplaying what this Browns roster has. And I'm just saying, guys, the Browns, I really feel like they need to capitalize this year really badly, because it's just not often you have a roster that is this good, this deep on both sides of the football. So I really do hope they capitalize on it, because this is a rare roster that we're witnessing right now. And I hope we can all appreciate what we're seeing. The fact that the tight end group, which is 3 deep legitimately, is the worst group on the offense, says a ton about the depth and how good this group. The fact that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt aren't the best offensive group in this offense says a ton about just how good that offensive line is. So the fact that you have a top 10 quarterback and your quarterback room is not number 1, it's 3, says a ton about how deep this offense is. And we haven't even talked about the offense that much this offseason. The hype has been about the defense. So again, guys, this is a special roster, but let me know what you think in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.